Hello my fellow friends of terrain building and welcome to another terrain building tutorial. Today it's about a very large piece of terrain and a very tall one for it as well. This Mirkwood tree is made primarily from natural materials, at least the branch. The core is made from natural wood, as you will see later on in the video. And I will also show you how to add the various features of the tree, such as the spiders, the webs, etc., to give the entire tree this Mirkwood foresty flair. Overall, the techniques in this video can be applied to making any Mirkwood tree, and any tree for that matter. So let's get right into it. As a first step, you have to go outside and search for any kind of piece of wood or tree branch or whichever you think looks nice, just like this one here. You can find them anywhere really, whenever you are strolling around in forests, out hiking, or even on vacations. These pieces are sometimes pushed ashore on riverbanks or beaches. Then, whenever you have your branch, step number one is to simply take your branch and glue it to your base. In my case, it's been combined with a rock, just because the particular structure of the branch allowed for it, and I think it looks really nice. Sometimes you have to work a little bit on massaging your branch to get the overall form you want. In my case, I'm very happy because the branch is already bifurcated enough and it looks cool, but it might be that you have to cut off some forks or add in some more in some places. Of course, that's no problem. Just take an angle grinder, cut them off or glue them on with some hot glue. Also, in case you have to glue them with hot glue, don't worry about parts or some remnants of the glue showing at first, like it does over here, because we can always cover it up later with some grass or some leaves. So in the end, the glue will not show anymore. It will not be visible. Also note that this particular branch has been pushed ashore and in the water for very long, which has caused these two little stones to be worked into the wood, which makes for another interesting feature of the tree. The next step is then to add a little more volume into your tree, which in my experience is a somewhat tedious exercise and always takes a while until it's done. However, this is done to personal taste. There's no blueprint and you are free to design it as you prefer. The way I do it is with this kind of cotton wool, which you can buy from most regular craft stores. But for this particular wool, the threads are a little bit longer and softer, so you can massage it and drag the wool into the shape that you like. Then you just insert it into the branches of your tree to give it more volume in the parts that you have chosen. Usually, I always test it at first, meaning that I take the wool and push it into place without fixating to make sure that I like the final look. So I inspect before I glue. Only then do I take the wool again off, and with some wood glue I then glue it onto the branches. Once everything is glued in place, I also mix together some wood glue and water, and with a regular spray bottle I spray the mixture on top of the wool. This makes the wool more stable and more resistant, which is useful because A, it ensures that the wool stays in place, and B, it also serves as a more solid foundation for the leaves later on. I am quite happy with the intermediate result so far and the way that it looks. In my experience, less is often more, meaning that you don't want to overdo it with the wool, because otherwise you would lose some of the very nice structure of the forks. Just imagine one would fill up the entire tree, then none of the really nice branches could be seen anymore. So yes, less is more, and here the wool has actually not been fixated so far with the wood glue, but I will do this shortly offside the camera just because it's not very interesting. Another reason you don't want to put in too much wool is because in general the Mirkwood trees have more to offer than simply branches and leaves. So you want to keep some space for later on for some additional features such as spiders, webs, etc. Now I just have to glue the wool with the glue, and yeah, then we shall come back later. In the meantime, the wool has been sprayed a couple of times with the glue water mix, maybe 3 to 4 times, I've lost count to be honest. But just to make sure the entire thing here is more stable and more robust, doesn't move anymore, which is handy with the next step coming up. So what we do now is to take a regular paintbrush and the pure wood glue this time, not mixed with water, and then we generously paint on the glue on top of the wool. This is also why it's important to have the wool as robust as possible, because otherwise you would now drag the threads of the wool all over the place with the paintbrush, and the tree would become chaotic and nothing like you first modeled. Here on camera I shall only focus on a small section to not bore you to death, but anyway, paste the wool maybe 5-6 times with the glue to have it generously on, which helps with the leaves in a second. But even though you paste the glue generously, it might be that you have to reiterate the steps a few times before you no longer have any gaps or holes in the end. For the leaves themselves, we take some of these cushiony or fluffy bits. Again, I bought mine from a regular craft store, and if you want, I can briefly show and link them below to illustrate the particular packages that I have used. Here, this is simply a medium size and a regular green color, but of course you are free to choose anything that you like. So now, grab a good handful of the fluffy bits and then simply press them on top of the glue to make sure that they stick densely. Obviously, covering the entire tree will take a while, and this is quite an effort. But once you are done and the glue has all dried up, you can then come back later and identify any gaps to go over again, just because many leaves will not stay on the first time and fall off, so don't lose heart. In the end, my suggestion is to retake the glue water mix and to respray the leaves, which makes them stick better and protects the shape a little more. This helps to not have terrains in the end which are covered with fallen leaves all the time. Now my task is to repeat the step with the rest of the tree, and then we will come back after the entire tree has been leaved or greened, so see you in a bit. The entire tree has been greened now, and I have to admit that I'm very happy with the outcome, and the look of our tree is already very good. In particular, notice that many of the branches are still visible and make for this amazing structure of the tree. This is exactly why in the beginning I was stressing not to be tempted to use too much wool in filling out the empty spaces in between the branches. So next, the next step is optional in a way, meaning that it's not necessary to be performed to in the end up with a nice looking Mirkwood tree. However, personally, I like it very much because if you remember from the movies, there is this scene with Bilbo climbing the trees to get the directions to Erebor. In this scene, all the trees have this autumn flair with yellow and orange colors, and I would like to replicate this autumn touch for our tree here. For this, I have bought again some more fluffy bits, and here the mixture is 2 times yellow, 2 times orange, and 1 time brown. Of course, this is again personal, and feel free to choose any mixture you like, but personally, I just don't like it if there's too much brown in the mix. Here you can see that I have an entire box of these fluffy bits mixed together, which is of course way too much for just one tree, but if you intend to build more than one tree, it can be quite handy to have a large mixture from the beginning, just to ensure that in the end all of your trees have the same uniform coloring. So how do we do this now? And up to here, the green leaves that are already on the tree have ideally been sprayed several times already with the glue water mix, making them more robust and preventing the fluffy bits from falling off so easily. Now we shall spray them again, but this time to Afterwards, let the yellow and brown fluffy bits drop on top. Whatever sticks, and that's good, and the rest can simply fall off. This way, looking at the tree from top down, we have mostly the yellow and orange leaves, while from the bottom up we have the green ones that dominate, which is exactly what you want from a classic, slightly mysterious Mirkwood tree. Since this is not particularly exciting to watch and quite difficult to film with the tree itself already being so tall, I shall do these steps offside the camera and come back after. So again, see you shortly. Welcome back. As announced, the leaves are now in autumn mode, and I just wanted to briefly show you the results before moving on. Also, in time-lapse, you have already seen the first few steps being done on the base, and this is what we shall focus on next. For the earthing of the base, I have mixed together this brownish sprinkle mix, which is mostly made from an earthy brown and then 3 different touches of green. Let me also show you these real fast in case you want to buy exactly the same packages as I did. Personally, I prefer a brown mix like this for a classic forest base, because this is really not mostly grass but rather earth or dirt. Here the steps are very simple because we just take a paintbrush and paste the base with wood glue and sprinkle the earthy mix from the top. After this has all dried up after some time, we can continue with the various decorations of the base, for example adding in some bushes, some stones, flowers, or even spiders' webs that are hanging close to the ground. I don't exactly have a fixed plan yet and not entirely sure myself how this will come out in the end, but we'll just wing it together spontaneously as we get there. The spiders for the tree have been prepared and painted already as well. For these spiders, their entire posture is modular in the sense that their legs and body and even their head are shaped exactly such that they sit perfectly in place and all legs actually touch the leaves. This helps with gluing and just looks better, to be honest. Here's a second spider, which has been prepared to hang later on from this branch over here. Last, but definitely not least, we need to focus on the webs. And for this we take a regular spider's web that one can typically buy in any supermarket around Halloween. The nice thing about these webs is that they can be stretched quite thin, which gives it a very nice structure, which can then be dragged along the branches. Mirkwood tree has been finished now, and as mentioned, you can see the two spiders throning on top of the leaves and hanging in plain sight, which are clearly a unique feature, a unique highlight of the tree. The hanging one even oscillating a little bit if you're moving the tree, which is again quite nice and realistic. I have to say that I'm very happy with the final outcome. From the bottom, our tree has this dark green, slightly mysterious flare, and from the top it has this autumny, slightly warm touch, which is exactly as I wanted it in the beginning. Finally, as another feature that you could choose to implement, I wanted to show you this Bilbo miniature here. And if you like, you could then place Bilbo somewhere on top of the highest branches to truly replicate the movie scene of Bilbo looking for directions. I shall not put Bilbo on this particular tree here, but on another one of mine. So let's show you exactly where he is on this other tree. So here it is on top in true Bilbo fashion. As mentioned before, you can also see that this second tree has been built with exactly the same techniques. It also has spiders, there are webs spun in between the branches, and of course the leaves have exactly the same coloring. At last, I want to show you the final terrain of the Mirkwood, combining together all of the Mirkwood trees that I have built, and yeah, just to give you an indication of how in the end a complete terrain could look like.